Alright, what's up? It's Jasparboo. Welcome back to the sanctuary. Let me know what you think about this new setup. My man's just got all this looking pretty good for now. But anyways, welcome back to the sanctuary. Today we've got some spooky TikTok, some creepy pasta. You know what it is. Thank you for coming back for it. If you're new to the channel, I love to talk about Christ. I love to talk about what's going on in the world. I love to talk about the spooky, ooky, boo, in your face things. And yeah, it is what it is. Please like, follow, share if you like it. And let's get into the video.
Of Stranger Things, or playing Vecna, Jamie Campbell Bower spiraled into heroin addiction and said he was 1 week away from dying. He's talked about waking up in places he didn't remember, overdosing, and losing control of his life. He eventually entered rehab, got sober, and described the experience as surviving the darkest years of his life. Before Stranger Things made him famous, Joe Keery survived a serious car accident that easily could have killed him. The car flipped and was completely wrecked, and he later said he only walked away because the airbags deployed at the exact right moment. The crash left him shaken for years, realizing how close he'd come to death before anyone knew his name. Gaten Matarazzo was born with cleidocranial dysplasia, a condition so rare it affects less than 1 in a million people. It left him without collarbones, caused severe skull and dental abnormalities, and forced him into repeated surgeries to expose impacted teeth and install prosthetics. The condition itself can cause brittle bones, dangerous airway problems, and lifelong complications. Before Stranger Things, he was rejected from audition after audition for his appearance, but the show ultimately wrote his real disorder into Dustin's character, and Gaten now uses his platform to raise awareness for those living with CCD. Lee Redmond held the world record for the longest fingernails at 28 feet in total length after growing them out for more than 30 years. She said she had to sleep in a special uncomfortable position and couldn't drive because of them. But she eventually lost them after she was ejected from the passenger seat in a 4-car pileup that resulted in serious injuries. For 60 years, an unknown figure dressed in black visited Edgar Allan Poe's grave on his birthday, January 19th. Starting in the 1930s, he would pour himself a glass of cognac and raise a toast in front of the grave, before leaving behind 3 roses and the unfinished bottle of cognac. The man never spoke and was never identified. In 1942, forest rangers discovered something disturbingly odd at a lake located high in the Himalayas. There were over 200 ancient skeletons with blunt force trauma to their skulls, but the strangest part was that they were from distinct populations that died about 1,000 years apart. Researchers say the lake may have served as a recurring death trap over the centuries, with many likely dying from sudden hailstorms, which explains the cracked skulls. Many of the skeletons can still be seen emerging from the thawing ice in the summer, some with their hair and flesh still intact.
Where are you? I probably don't have much time left to tell my mom that I love her if I die.
That was the voice of 16-year-old Kyle Plush, heard in his final moments as he slowly died alone in his family's minivan. In April of 2018, Kyle became trapped in a Honda Odyssey in his high school parking lot when the power-folding third-row seat suddenly collapsed, folding forward and pinning him upside down by the chest, neck, and head. The position left him inverted, compressing his lungs and restricting blood flow. For roughly 30 minutes, Kyle called 911 multiple times, calmly but increasingly distressed, telling dispatchers he was trapped and struggling to breathe.
Hello, Cincinnati 911 is the address of the emergency. Hello, hello. Cincinnati 911. I'm so in my bed, outside, the 7 Hills, parking lot. The 7 Hills what parking lot? Help. I need help.
As the pressure worsened, his voice grew weaker and more labored.
Where are you? I probably don't have much time left to tell my mom that I love her if I die. This is not a joke. This is not a joke. I'm trapped inside my gold Honda Odyssey van in the Southwood parking lot of 7 Hills Theft. Send officers immediately. I'm almost dead.
His calls were repeatedly misclassified as accidental butt dials, and officers sent to search for him checked the wrong area before leaving. Kyle remained trapped for hours, unable to move, eventually losing consciousness and dying from positional asphyxia. He was later found by his parents, still wedged beneath the folded seat. His death was ruled accidental, but the case exposed serious failures in emergency response and raised lasting concerns about vehicle seat designs and how narrowly Kyle missed being rescued.
You guys want to hear a scary story? What better way to break in the new place than to tell you guys a scary story about what happened when I was moving out of my old place. This place has amazing energy, but let's get into it. Okay, so I definitely think whenever I was at my old place, like, didn't want me to move, obviously. Cold. So, second to the last night I stayed at my old place, I was having a really hard night this night specifically. Like, I was kind of going through things on my own, like, sad about my breakup, and, like, I'm having a bad night already. My energy and, like, my vibration is low. Sorry. Guys, you gotta remember I have a stutter. Okay. So, this specific night, I had cried myself to sleep. Like, I had done most nights the past month. But, I had drank some wine, so I was, like, a little tipsy. So, you know, when sometimes you have wine, like, you sleep extra good almost. Because, for me, like, wine will knock me out, right? So, I wake up and, not, like, fully wake up. I was, like, coming out of sleep, and I thought I was dreaming at first. And then I hear, "Mommy." And it sounds like my daughter's voice. And so, instantly, I'm, like, listening, and I hear, "Mommy, come here." And I realized, guys, as I'm sitting up, immediately the panic sets in. She's with her dad. My daughter was not home. It's like 3 a.m. And I hear her voice coming from her room across the side of the apartment. "Mommy." So once that instantly clicks for me, like, whether I'm kind of deep sleep or not, I obviously know my child is home or not, you know? And I'm like, there's just no way. Like, my baby dad would not come try and get into my house in the middle of the night and bring my daughter over there. Like, I knew this was, like, I was either hallucinating or having a dream. Like, I knew she wasn't in the house, but guys, it sounded just identical to her little voice. Like, it was insane. Oh, I sit up straight, and I sleep in the dark. I can't sleep with lights on. It's gotta be pitch black. So I'm looking out of the door, like my bedroom door, and you kind of see, like, the living room and kitchen, and then around the living room and the kitchen is, like, where her room is. It's, like, all the way in the back. And then I'm, like, staring out in the dark, and I'm like, God, I don't know why, but that just scared me so much worse. And I don't normally get scared. I think it's because my daughter, like, obviously, it sounded just like her, and it messed with my head. Because, you know, as if you're a parent, like, you hear your child's voice, and you're, like, instantly go into panic mode. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm just having a bad dream, like, everything is fine, right? Oh, I get, like, chills. So anyways, I'm, like, starting to slowly, like, lay back down, and I see, like, out of the corner of my eye, it looked like something small was, like, running, like, across the living room, but it was, like, it was small. And then I'm putting two and two together. Remember I told you guys another story time how the thing that's been coming in my house, the entity, like, crawls on the floor? It looks, like, small in that way, like, height-wise. And I was just like, God, no. Like, I was already having a night from hell. And obviously, if you have had paranormal experiences, you know that things feed off your energy. If you are sad, if you are, like, depressed, whatever it is, you're gonna get fed on and attacked so much harder. And I was not in a good headspace. Like, the past month I was there, I was very sad, very distraught, very depressed, like, the whole nine. And I closed my eyes really tight, and then I feel my bed, like, move, okay? So I close my eyes tight, and I feel the bed move, like, the bed frame, though. I almost felt like when my dog would, like, lay against my bed, or when she'd walk past and bump into it. It was like a subtle bump, like something bumped into the bottom of the bed, and I'm like, I just start breathing heavily, and I pull the covers over my head, and I'm like, no. I start praying immediately. Like, I don't know why I was so freaked out. I normally don't get freaked out. I was freaking out. And then, from, like, outside of the blanket, I feel like, it feels like something is coming. This happens to me too much. This is happening with this entity too much. It, like, crawls on the bed. Like, it tries to come at me. I feel like the bed is moving. I feel like something is, like, crawling onto it from the floor. Like, it almost felt like an imprint, like a body getting in it, but half of a body.
Link. A handful of family and close friends were able to attend, but given the state our friendship was left in, I didn't know if anybody would want me there, so I quietly watched from my couch as the fishbowl of red wine in my hand caught my tears. About a week after Penny's funeral, I was home alone, which now was rare at the time.
Very beginning, the first day that I took her to her,
Right outside of the blanket, like I was covering myself with a blanket, and I just hear, "Mommy," but it's deep, and it is like demonic sounding. And I know immediately, obviously, this is this thing is trying to fuck with me. And I always think in these times where I've been called, or it's trying to call me into like that, I'm like, why does it want me to go out of my room and go to where it is? Like, just, it freaks me out. And then it's like, it comes like to find me. I started screaming. And like, that's not something I ever do. Okay, when I get scared, I don't like scream. And I started screaming. And I was just like, I couldn't come out of the blanket. It scared me so bad. I'm praying on overtime mode, and I had my phone like under the blanket with me, and I picked up my phone, and I was about to call my best friend because I was just...
Let me just make a point right here, okay? What is she praying to? What's she praying to? Is there any authority in the name of Jesus Christ right here? No. No. These things can't touch you. They can't mess with you. Honestly, they can't really scare you when you got Jesus with you. They turn and flee. And to be honest with you, that's even if they're given, like, open access to you. Because I used to experience stuff like this so much. So much. And then I gave my life to Christ. I got baptized. And... you know, I see things, I always have. I feel energies, I feel entities. But the weird thing is now I see them for what they are. And that they don't scare me like they used to. Like, at all, is the crazy thing. But on top of that, it's like, how do I explain it? It's like the veil has been lifted, right? And what I used to not completely understand, it's like I see it with discernment of like, this thing's not even, they're really like, how do you even explain it? They're like little dusty minions, basically. They have no power. Anyways. Enough of me, Gavin.
Didn't know what to do. You know, I was not well, but I was like, no, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to wake anybody up. But I didn't sleep. I got up for the day. So after that happened, I like pep talked myself. I turned on every light in the house. I made coffee, and I didn't go back to bed. That was the most harrowing. I just hate it because it's like it's my daughter's my world, and I feel like it was feeding off of that. Like, I don't like that, using like my daughter to try to get into my head, like mimicking her voice. It was very dark, and I can tell you guys right now, there is nothing in this apartment. I did I always tell people to cleanse your space in your home before you move into it, but also, you know, every religion is different in culture, so make sure you're looking into that before you're doing it. I know what works for me and what I can do. I made a mistake on not fully cleansing and blessing the home that I lived in before. This baby is like Fort Knox in here. And the energy is so great. But that's it for now. At least we are moving on to better things and less scary things. Bye.
So this guy says when he first started dating his wife was when they were in school, and every Friday he would go and drop her off at home. The parents would usually pick her up every day, but on Fridays they had this little market that they would go and work, so he volunteered to take her home every Friday so that they didn't have to worry about her. What a sacrifice. Every time he would drop her off on Friday, they would both get out of the car and just talk for a little bit out there. And that was because the parents didn't like for them to stay in the car and talk. He's like, from the very beginning, the first day that I took her to her house, house. He thought it was so cute how her grandmother would always be watching them from the window of like one of the bedrooms at the house, and she just looked cute there, like watching them, making sure they wouldn't be doing anything. He's like, she was for sure letting me know that she was watching us. Every Friday it was the same thing. I would drop her off, we would get out, I'd be leaning on my car, and I could see the grandma watching us through the window. Every time the grandmother was looking out through the window, she always seemed like she was in a good mood. She was smiling. However, there was one day where it was a Friday, he dropped her off, they're out there talking, and he notices that the grandmother's face is very serious, and the complete opposite of what she normally looked like. She normally looked happy, but this time she looked really mad. And as he's looking at her, because he could tell something was wrong, he says that she started to open her mouth and say something, like she was mouthing something to him. She would open her mouth and close it, and then he noticed when she opened her mouth a little too wide, almost like if she was choking on something. He of course looks at his girlfriend and says, hey, is your grandma okay? It looks like she's choking. Does she need any help? Like, what is happening? My grandmother, she asks. He explains that it was actually the first time he ever mentioned that the grandmother was standing there, but he was like, yeah, your grandmother that always stands in the window of this room, like turn around, look at her. So the girlfriend was standing right outside the front door as he's leaning on his car, and she turns to look at the window, which again is like to her side, and she's like, I don't see anything. So he's like, well, come stand where I am so that you can see her. By the time she got to where he was, he couldn't see the old lady anymore, and obviously neither could she, but he tells her, well, she's always standing there, like she's always there watching us when we're talking. He said that she looked at him like really, like he threw her off. She looks at him and says, you know, nobody is inside the house. Both of my grandmothers live outside of the city, so they're not even here. He got very concerned, but obviously it wasn't an intruder because it had been weeks that I've been seeing this lady standing by the window, so it was nobody that was in there robbing, but there was definitely an old lady there watching us every time. The girlfriend was like, well, can you walk me inside? Can we go look? Because I am terrified now. Nobody should be inside the house. So he goes into the bedroom where he had been seeing this lady, and when he walks in there is a dresser right in front of that window, where like, because the dresser was there, no one could possibly stand there and look out the window. It was impossible for someone's face to be right next to the window because of the way the dresser was placed in front of it. His girlfriend didn't even want to get near that window and asked if he could take her to where that flea market is where her parents are working. He agreed to take her, and when they got to the little market, they did explain to the parents why he was going to drop her off there and what happened, and that they went to go check. They explained everything to them. He explains how her parents looked surprised, but they weren't concerned the way that he thought they were gonna be concerned that he was seeing somebody inside their house. They didn't even give him a comment, or like they didn't say anything about the situation until many years later, where he's already married to their daughter. That's when the in-laws finally tells him what happened in that bedroom and who they thought the guy had been seeing every time he would drop the daughter off. The bedroom belonged to the grandmother's sister, and I'm talking about years before his wife, you know, the daughter was even born. That is also where she spent her last days when nobody wanted to take care of her anymore. The parents, his in-laws, they ended up taking care of her, but they explained how this lady was not a good woman, and that was the reason why she had stayed there alone and nobody wanted to take care of her back then. Apparently, before convincing her to go into that house to spend her last days, the only reason she agreed is because she was allowed to bring this suitcase where she had crazy amount of stuff in there where she would practice black magic. When she passed away, the parents did end up throwing all of her belongings away, and they didn't experience anything strange or see anything weird until he was the one who would see her in that window. Ever since then, they're no longer shocked or surprised when people come and visit and tell them that they see an old lady by the window just watching them. He basically says everybody just needs to be reassured that ghosts are definitely near you. They're definitely around you, even though you cannot see them. But what do you guys think? Like, what?
I don't know about you, but I see them. I've seen them, and I'll be honest with you. If anybody wants to be here for my woo-woo stuff, I have a theory that actually how do you know that that's her and not actually a demon or another entity? Because of what I see in the Bible, personally, I think that is more true than anything. Even, and I don't mean to discourage people and make them think that, like, oh, you see a sign, it's not your dead relative, but, I mean, if you particularly are a Christian and you believe in Christ, you don't really want your loved ones sticking around either way. Like, it's a lot more comforting, at least if they believed in Jesus, for them to not be here. And I do not see a lot of proof that tells me that that is actually the relative. We have to remember to use discernment again with these things, because the demons take on many forms. Going back to being thrown from a man, or cast out of a man, and begging for them to not be left out in arid places, but instead to be allowed to go into the pigs, and then they yeet themselves off of a cliff. Right? Food for thought. Let me know what you think. Oh, come on, baby.
He had been seeing someone that wasn't really there. What was she mouthing to him, though? Oh, actually, I don't want to know what the hell.
You get scared easy and you're laying in bed right now trying to fall asleep, you should probably just keep scrolling. Say I didn't warn you, this story that a follower sent me is so creepy, I just have to read it to y'all. About my worst fear, encountering a mimic. So Vanessa and her 16-year-old daughter, Olivia, live in this small town in South Dakota. Olivia goes and stays with her father every weekend, so she leaves on Friday afternoons and she doesn't get back until Sunday evenings. Olivia's usually already gone to her dad's house by the time Vanessa makes it home from work on Friday evenings. But on this particular Friday, when Vanessa made it home from work and she pulled in the driveway, she looked up at Olivia's window and she noticed that there was a light on. Figured that she had just accidentally left it on or whatever, but when she went inside, she heard movement coming from upstairs. Vanessa was like, oh, I guess she decided to stay home this weekend, and she went upstairs and slowly opened Olivia's door and was like, hey, is your dad not picking you up today? Olivia said no, I told him to stay, while she was looking down at her journal. Vanessa was like, oh, okay, well, that's fine. I'm going to go make us some dinner. Would you want to watch a movie tonight? There was a really long pause, and then Olivia said yes, and Vanessa thought that she was being a little bit standoffish. Didn't really like her to not have a lot to say. She usually talked a whole lot, so Vanessa texted her dad and asked if they maybe had gotten to some type of disagreement, and that was why he hadn't came to get her this weekend. Vanessa makes her way on downstairs, and she's preparing for dinner and cooking and cutting up vegetables and just cleaning up and stuff. When she looks over and she notices that Olivia's book bag and coat isn't hanging where it normally is. She just assumed that Olivia had taken her things with her to her room, so no big deal. But anyway, she walks into the living room and Olivia's sitting there on the couch, just facing the TV, staring the opposite direction of Vanessa. Vanessa didn't hear her come downstairs or anything at all. She said it kind of startled her because she was just sitting on the couch, just staring at the TV, but the TV wasn't on. She wasn't on her phone or doing anything that she would normally be doing. So Vanessa goes back to the kitchen to check on the food, and she hollers out for Olivia and she says, hey, can you pick out a movie for us? So she goes back in the living room once she's done checking on the food, and when she gets in there, she notices that Olivia is still just sitting there staring at the TV and it hasn't been turned on yet. She's just sitting there motionless. And so Vanessa's like, hey, Olivia, did you hear me? I asked you to pick us out a movie. Vanessa sets their plates down and she grabs the remote and decides to pick out a movie herself, and she starts playing The Conjuring. And then she hears her phone dinging in the kitchen, so she's like, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go check my phone. When Vanessa checked her phone, she had a text from Olivia's father. She said when she read his message, her whole body just went cold and stiff, and she had literal cold chills. He said, what do you mean? I picked Olivia up from school and we're having dinner right now with her grandmother. Vanessa took a deep breath and she started walking slowly back towards the living room to see if whatever that was still sitting on the couch. It was. It was still just sitting there, very still, motionless, just staring at the TV. That's when Vanessa realized that she hadn't even seen Olivia's face since she'd been home. Whatever this thing was avoiding eye contact. Vanessa went back to the kitchen. She didn't know what to do. She was terrified. Who wouldn't be? She knew that she had to go back in the living room, though, because her keys were in there. She took another deep breath, and she worked up the courage to walk back out into the living room confidently, like everything was normal. It was gone. Vanessa says she don't know why, but she yelled out, Olivia? That's when she heard its voice coming from upstairs, sounding just like her, Olivia, and it said, "Mom, I need your help," in the most sinister voice. Hell no. Vanessa grabbed her keys and she ran the fuck out of that house as fast as she could. Shaking so bad she couldn't even put the keys in the ignition. She said that at that moment she was just wishing that she had like pushed the start. As she was backing up out of her driveway, she said she looked back.
See, this is what I mean. This is what I'm talking about. So, you hear a story like this, right? These people think clear as day at first that this is their loved one, right? So if you think they'll do this with living people, why would you believe that that they're not going to mimic dead loved ones? Yeah. Anyways.
Back up to Olivia's window, and there it was standing, waving at her, faceless. Vanessa said she couldn't even breathe at this point, and she had never driven so fast in her entire life. Vanessa, I'm gonna need a part 2 to this one, so please, we need to follow up. Story has me scared. I had to tell it before it got dark out, because I plan on sleeping tonight. Can't wait to hear what y'all think about this story in the comments. If you have a scary story, please send it to me. You can send it on here, or you can send it to my email, which is my username at gmail.
When I was younger, we used to always go to Mexico, right? And we used to stay the night at my grandma's house. And we always used to sleep in the living room. And if you're familiar with the house in Mexico, you know that they don't have like a triangular shaped roof like most houses here in the States. The roof is pretty flat, and most of the time there's like a stairs. You can go up there and go into the techo or the roof, whatever you call it. And so the way my grandma's house was built, she had a living room, and behind the living room was un patio, like an open patio. There was glass windows, and there was doors that led into the patio. And we always kept them closed because the patio had no roof, right? So as soon as you went into the patio, you would look up and you could see the sky. There were stairs that led up there, and we always used to hang out. Anyways, we would roll our mattresses to a living room, and we would try to go to sleep, right? But every night, you would hear a pebble, a rock, a marble. I don't know what it was. You would hear it roll on the roof, but it never landed. And it happened like every night that we were there visiting. And we would tell my grandma, she's like, we always hear, like everybody hears it here. Never stay there again, right? Because my parents ended up building a house, and an uncle ended up living there. But now that nobody's living there, like I've always been curious to go back and like just stay there and see if I can hear this, because it was crazy. Like the rock would just roll, never landed, and who the fuck is up there rolling rocks? Like there was no way somebody was even going up into the techo, because how would they get up there? Because the doors weren't quiet, like they would make a sound every time you open them, and there's obviously windows there. I would be seeing a shadow walk up the stairs or something. So that's been like on the back of my mind. I've been curious thinking about it. Maybe one day I need to go back and try to figure out what the sound was. So I don't know, what do you guys think it was? Have you had a similar experience like that? If you have, let me know in the comments.
You guys.
All right. That's it for the video. Thank you for coming back to the sanctuary. Let me know what you think. And, I don't know, let me know what you're afraid of. I'm going to remind you, you ain't got nothing to be afraid of. Besides that, yeah, no. Keep it chill. Keep the vibe going. Please, please, open this book. Mine's weathered and worn and ugly as I'll get out, to be honest with you. I've had this thing since I was like 10. I didn't open it till, well, correction. I didn't actually pay attention to what it said till I was 25, and dabbling in witchcraft basically opened the door to so many things I was terrified I wouldn't be able to shut the door on. But Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, can't limit him. Literally all things are possible through Christ. There's my little sword of truth for you tonight. Says that. Welcome back. see you next time in the sanctuary.